Here is a strange fact that tells you everything about this car. Millions of children played with a Matchbox version of the Siva S160 Spyder, but only 12 real ones were ever built. The toy was produced from 1972 to 1978 as model number 41 in the superfast range. More people have held the toy than have ever seen the real car. The man behind this obscure British sports car was Neville Trickett, one of the most creative minds in the history of kit cars. Born in Manchester in 1935, Trickett served as an army officer in Malaya before becoming an artist. But his true passion was motorsport. He raced minis at tracks like Castle Combe, and in April 1967, he launched his own design company in Blandford Forum, a small town in Dorset. Trickett had already proven himself with the Mini Sprint, a chopped and restyled Mini that essentially launched British hot rodding. He sold 85 of them. But the S160 would be something far more ambitious, a futuristic sports car with gullwing doors that looked like it belonged on the cover of a science fiction novel. The car's origin story involves rejection and reinvention. Trickett originally designed the sleek coupe for Marcos, a famous British sports car company. He planned to power it with a Hillman Imp engine, but Marcos rejected his design. When the stillborn prototype appeared at the 1969 Racing Car Show, John Oder of the famous John Speed Tuning Company spotted it and displayed it on his own stand. Still, nothing came of it. Rather than give up, Trickett redesigned his creation to accept Volkswagen Beetle parts. A brilliant move since VW components were affordable and available everywhere. The transformed car became the Siva S160, and it debuted at the January 1971 Racing Car Show, where it wowed the crowd. The S160's design was revolutionary for a kit car. It featured pop-up headlights and dramatic gullwing doors that swung upward like the legendary Mercedes-Benz 300 SL. The fiberglass body sat on a complete VW Beetle floor pan, meaning any owner could service it with parts from their local dealer. One quirky feature stood out. All the control switches were mounted in the driver's door panel instead of on the dashboard. Volkswagen UK actually showed interest in producing the S160 in volume. Imagine that. A proper factory backed Volkswagen with gullwing doors, but the deal never materialized, and Trickett continued building cars by hand in a former sawmill on Lord Portman's estate in Bryanston. A bare body shell cost £525, while a fully trimmed version ran about £895. That is roughly £11,000 in today's money. Why did production stay so limited at just 12 cars? The Siva company was tiny and spread thin across too many different models. When co-founder Michael Saunders left the company, he took the molds for other Siva models with him. The company finally folded in 1976. The S160 molds were acquired by Cyril Malem of CTG Racing in Wimborne. Several S160s survive today, scattered around the world. One owner in Florida purchased what Trickett himself confirmed was chassis number 1. Another owner in Devon, England, installed a Porsche 356 engine in his yellow S160. David Baggett recalled it went like a rocket, lovely to drive. His car was mistaken for a Lamborghini Urraco. One touching memory comes from someone who grew up in Morocco. Their father imported one red version in Morocco in 1972. It was their mom's daily driver, and they remember being picked up at school in it. The S160's design influenced what came later. Multiple observers have noted similarities to the DeLorean DMC-12, which would not appear until 1981. Both featured gullwing doors, stainless steel accents, and a futuristic wedge shape. Trickett was simply ahead of his time. The car that most people know only as a toy was actually a glimpse into the future of automotive design. It combined practical VW engineering with science fiction, styling a full decade before DeLorean made gullwing doors famous again. Only 12 were built because the business could not support mass production, not because the design was flawed. In fact, the design was so good that Matchbox immortalized it, ensuring that even if the real car disappeared, the shape would live on in the hands of children around the world. Neville Trickett passed away on May 27, 2022, at age 87. He had spent his final years in France, still converting minis into mini sprints. His legacy includes dozens of kit car designs, but the S160 remains his most memorable creation. A car so beautiful that a toy company immortalized it for children around the world to enjoy. Building a sports car in East Germany should have been impossible. The communist government viewed luxury items with deep suspicion. Private businesses could not operate freely. Quality parts were scarce. Yet one man, a racing driver named Heinz Melkus, managed to create what became known as the Ferrari of the East, the only true sports car to emerge from behind the Iron Curtain. Melkus was born in Dresden on April 20, 1928. After World War II, he worked as a truck driver before discovering his calling in motorsport. He built his first racing car in 1951, using parts from a modified Volkswagen Schwimmwagen. Over the next 3 decades, he would win approximately 80 out of 200 races and claim 4 East German Formula 3 championships. Fellow enthusiasts called him the Eastern Colin Chapman, after the legendary Lotus founder. The dream of building an East German sports car came to Melkus in the most painful way. In the early 1960s, while driving to a Formula 3 race in Yugoslavia, a Lotus Elan overtook him. That moment crystallized everything wrong with motorsport in the communist bloc. Western drivers had access to brilliant lightweight sports cars. Eastern drivers had nothing. Melkus and his sons, Peter and Uli, began sketching designs inspired by the Ford GT40, Ferrari 250 GTO, Porsche 904, and Lamborghini Miura. They created a 1:10 scale plastic model. But how could anyone get permission to build such a thing in a country that barely tolerated private enterprise? Here is where Melkus showed political genius. Working with the Automobile Racing Commission, he submitted an application framing the project as a patriotic effort to honor the 20th anniversary of the founding of the German Democratic Republic in 1969. Through high diplomatic skill, the use of his network, and some well-worded publications, Melkus convinced the government that streetcar racing was a socially important, useful, and necessary activity. The government approved the project. A remarkable team came together. Engineers from Dresden University of Technology, technicians from the Eisenach Automobile Factory, and designer Stefan Scheitler from the Berlin Weissensee School of Art. They refined the design through wind tunnel testing and created a 1:5 scale clay model. The RS-1000 used parts from the Wartburg 353, East Germany's mid-range family car. The chassis came from a supplier responsible for Wartburg repairs. The 992 cubic centimeter 3-cylinder 2-stroke engine produced 68 to 70 horsepower in standard form. Modest by Western standards, but impressive given the constraints. Racing versions could be tuned to produce 118 horsepower and reach 210 kilometers per hour, or 130 miles per hour. Some owners wanted Western-style metallic paint colors, not available in East Germany. They specially organized them through whatever channels they could find. The determination to make these cars special never wavered. The RS-1000 proved itself on racetracks across Eastern Europe. It competed in the Peace and Friendship Cup series, racing against Western imports like the Porsche 914. Heinz Melkus's son, Uli, became the most successful racing driver in Eastern Bloc history, winning 5 GDR championships and the Peace and Friendship Cup 5 times. Tragically, Uli died in a road accident near Speyer, West Germany, in June 1990, just months after the Berlin Wall fell. He was 40 years old. Production of the RS-1000 ended in 1979 due to increasingly difficult parts supplies. When the Berlin Wall fell in December 1989, Heinz Melkus quickly adapted. Within weeks, he signed a contract with BMW and became the first BMW dealer in Dresden. He continued restoring RS-1000S until his death from heart failure on September 5, 2005, at age 77. The story continued with Heinz's son, Peter, who announced a revival in December 2006. The Melkus RS 2000 debuted at the 2009 Frankfurt Motor Show, using a Lotus Elise platform with a turbocharged engine producing 325 horsepower. It featured the signature gullwing doors. Unfortunately, sales never materialized, and Melkus filed for bankruptcy in August 2012. Today, approximately 80 RS-1000S remain roadworthy out of the 101 built. They appear at enthusiast gatherings organized by the Melkus brothers, with as many as 50 showing up at single events. Values range from 79,000 to 89,000 euros for well-preserved examples. The insult happened at the 1969 Brazilian Motor Show, and it stung badly enough to launch an entire car program. A director from Puma, Brazil's most successful sports car maker, approached the Volkswagen display with a suggestion. Since VW had no sports car of its own, why not feature a Puma? After all, Puma cars used VW parts. The comment embarrassed Rudolf Leiting, then head of Volkswagen do Brasil. He left that show determined to create a Volkswagen sports car that would make everyone forget about Puma. Leiting had transferred to Brazil in March 1968, specifically because the company promised him creative freedom. In 1970, he launched Projeto X, Project X, to develop a sports car that would liven up Volkswagen's staid image in Brazil. The design team was small but talented. Lead designer Marzio Lima Piancastelli had interned at Carman and drew inspiration from the Toyota 2000 GT, Jaguar E-Type, and Chevrolet Corvette. Fellow designers José Vicente Novita Martins and Jorge Yamashita Oba contributed to the project, while Italian craftsman Giuseppe Accasto hand-built the first prototype. Leiting wanted the car to appeal to women as well as men. His wife Helga became an unofficial consultant. Some called her the seventh member of the team. According to company history, Leiting told her he had built the car just for her, for you, and all the other ladies. The night before the final management presentation, the design team made a last-minute change, reducing the front overhang by 10 centimeters to improve the proportions. The first prototype debuted at the German Industrial Fair in São Paulo on March 24, 1971, sharing attention with the Mercedes-Benz C111 concept car. The SP2 was called the most beautiful Volkswagen in the world. The car introduced what became known as the shark face front-end styling, the first Volkswagen with this distinctive look, which later appeared on the German VW 412 and the Brazilian Brasilia. Production began in July 1972 at a complex arrangement of 3 facilities. Sheet metal parts came from VW's Anchieta factory. Bodies were hand-assembled at Carman Guia do Brasil. Final vehicles returned to Anchieta for painting and inspection. The launch price was 29,700 Brazilian cruzeiros, nearly the cost of 2 Beetles. Here is where the problem started. The SP2 used a 1,679 cubic centimeter air-cooled flat-4 engine producing just 65 horsepower. The car weighed 890 kilograms or 1,962 pounds. Heavy for a sports car, because VW used an all-steel body instead of fiberglass. The Puma, using similar VW engines but with a much lighter fiberglass body, could easily outperform it. Total production reached 10,205 units between 1972 and 1976, The smaller-engined SP1 variant accounted for only 88 of those. Buyers clearly preferred whatever extra power they could get. VW considered developing an SP3 successor with a water-cooled engine, but plans were cancelled. Today, fewer than 1,000 SP2S are estimated to survive worldwide. Approximately 50 exist in Europe, and just 4 are currently registered in the UK. Rust has claimed many. The all-steel body that penalized performance also invited corrosion. Brazilian collectors have formed Club SP2 do Brasil, which organized 40th and 50th anniversary celebrations. Values have climbed steadily. Well-preserved examples now sell for $40,000 to $70,000. One reportedly sold at auction for $44,000. The car that was too slow for the 1970s has become highly desirable for collectors who appreciate beauty over speed. Design historians believe the SP2 influenced what came next at Volkswagen. The car is generally believed to have been the conceptual predecessor of the EA425 project that eventually became the Porsche 924. Compare the side profiles, and the family resemblance becomes clear. Modern enthusiasts have imagined what could have been. Brazilian engineering students at FEI College designed a reimagined SP2 with a turbocharged 261 horsepower engine. A designer named Diogo Ropond created plans for an electric SP2 successor based on VW's ID platform. The dream of a proper SP2 replacement refuses to die. In the Volkswagen Auto Museum Foundation in Wolfsburg, a 1973 SP2, repainted from astral blue to lotus white, sits as a permanent reminder of what Brazil created. It remains one of the most beautiful cars VW has ever made, proof that automotive greatness is not always measured in horsepower. Saab started building airplanes in 1937. The company was created to supply fighter planes to the Swedish Air Force as war clouds gathered over Europe. When World War II ended, demand for military aircraft collapsed. The engineers who had designed aircraft needed new work. They turned their attention to automobiles. This was not a casual decision. Saab's engineers genuinely believed their knowledge of aerodynamics could create better cars. The first Saab automobile, the 92, appeared in 1949 with a drag coefficient of 0.30, a remarkably slippery shape directly influenced by aircraft design principles. Born from jets became more than a marketing slogan. It described reality. The first Sonett came from a secret project in a barn. In 1955, Rolf Melde, a Saab engine developer and racing enthusiast, gathered colleagues Lars Olof Olsson, Ola Lindqvist, and Gotta Svensson in a barn near Trollhättan. Working with a budget of just 75,000 Swedish kroner, they created an open two-seater sports car using aircraft-grade aluminum and stressed skin construction. The chassis weighed only 70 kilograms. Legendary Saab designer Sixten Sasson gave the car its name. Sonett, from the Swedish phrase så nätt den är, meaning how neat it is. It had nothing to do with Shakespeare's sonnets. Only 6 Sonett I cars were ever built. Saab planned to manufacture 2,000, but FIA racing rules changed in 1956 to allow modified production cars to compete, eliminating the need for a purpose-built racer. 5 of those original 6 cars survive today. 2 are in the Saab Museum. The Sonett 2 had one major problem. People thought it was ugly. Its styling may bring tears of despair and frustration to the eyes of the serious student of automobile design. An asymmetrical hood bulge needed to clear the V4 engine drew particularly harsh criticism. Saab knew it needed a redesign. The Sonett 3 debuted at the 1970 New York Auto Show. This was no accident. The American market was the car's primary target. Over 90% of Sonett 3 production went to the United States. Left-hand drive versions were essentially the only configuration available. Production numbers for the Sonett III reached 8,368 units between 1970 and 1974. Combined with earlier Sonett II production, approximately 10,200 Sonetts were built in total. The cars were manufactured at ASJ in Arlöv, Sweden, with fiberglass bodies produced by a separate company humorously named Saab. The Sonett III was unusual in a crucial way. It was front-wheel drive. Almost every other sports car of the era, MG, Triumph, Alfa Romeo, used rear-wheel drive. Front-wheel drive was considered inappropriate for sporting applications. The Sonett proved otherwise. Enthusiasts today describe them as handling like slot cars. The Ford V4 engine produced 65 horsepower from either 1.5 or 1.7 liters, depending on the model year. This was not exciting power, but the Sonett weighed just 770 to 880 kilograms, or 1,697 to 1,940 pounds, nearly 200 pounds lighter than an MG/MGB. The car reached 100 kilometers per hour in 12 to 13 seconds and topped out at 165 kilometers per hour or 103 miles per hour. Fuel economy was recorded at 26.4 miles per gallon during testing. Saab's aircraft heritage showed in the safety features. The Sonett III had an integrated roll bar built into the body structure, rollover bars in the A-pillars, 3-point seat belts mounted to the rear bulkhead, and high-back bucket seats designed to prevent whiplash. These features were advanced for any sports car of the era. American Sonetts came in wild colors that would never appear on sensible Swedish sedans: lime green, golf yellow, orange, even purple. The soccer ball alloy wheels became a distinctive styling element. Optional dealer-installed air conditioning arrived for the 1971 model year. Why did Saab stop making the Sonett? Multiple forces combined against it. The 1973 OPEC oil embargo devastated sports car sales everywhere. New U.S. safety regulations required expensive low-speed impact-resistant bumpers that ruined the Italian-inspired design. Emissions rules kept power output flat despite engine displacement increases. A planned Sonett IV successor, developed with British firm Reliant and designer Tom Karan, was rejected by Saab's board as too costly. Production ended in mid-1974. The final Sonett III to leave the Arlöv factory was bright yellow, chassis number 2500. It now resides in the Saab Automobile Factory Museum in Trollhättan. The Sonett proved that front-wheel drive could work in a sports car, that aircraft engineers could build exciting automobiles, and that Swedish design could compete with Italian flair. It deserved a longer life than changing regulations and an oil crisis allowed.